Wow, Casey, really? Really? No, technically you're late. No. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Now you're extra late. How's everyone doing today? It's been a while. Maybe we should use one of the cute scenes. What do you think? There we go. Hmm. How's that? Morning. Eepy. It's one of those nights where you feel like you slept plenty, but also feel more tired than the next day. Like I need 8 more hours of sleep just to make up for the 8 hours of sleep I just had. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, honeydew. Thank you for getting first. Good morning, Em. Thank you for getting second. And good morning, Gamizu. Thank you for getting third. And thank you, Nap Time, and Gibbons, and Echo Infernal for checking in. And thank you, Carmen, for the follow. How's everyone doing today? What if we change the colors a little bit? There we go. Thank you, Casey, for checking in. Now you're late. You happy? Morning job. There's no arson today. Too EP for arson. No. Thank you, Cian, for checking in. Trying my hardest not to yawn this much, but I just can't help it. Oh no, don't call me that, Pinky. What kind of thing is that to call me? Daddy J-Dog, oh no. My Red Bull and its apple and ginger, sounds delicious. Good morning, Blue Valley Lilies. How are you doing today? So today we have some choices. One poetry was written for me by the lovely, Addie. But we'll read this later. But for now, we're gonna be doing some low energy Minecraft. That's what I'm feeling right now. Some low energy Minecraft. Nap time. You like Minecraft, apparently. What is it about Minecraft that you like? Mm. Are you in class? That's wild. My Ollie. Ollie, 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 Ollie. Good morning, Ollie. Num, 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 num. Let me do a thing here. Ollie, 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 Ollie. The most Ollie of all the Ollies. There's the game capture. We're going to turn the audio down. Thank you so much for the follow. I suppose I can do a poetry first. Fine, fine. We'll do a little poetry first. Alright, let me pull up the poetry. How are you doing? Tyson's left out. How's your morning going? Oh, where is it? There it is. I have to find my list of poetry to read. What do we have today? We're in week 2. That works. Are you ready? Ode to a Nightingale. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my senses as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains. 1 minute passed, and lithward had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou light-winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beechen green and shadowed numberless, sing'st of summer in full-throated ease. Oh, for a draught of vintage that hath been cooled a long age in the deep-delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green, dance and provincial song and sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles leaking at the brim, and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou among the leaves hast never known, the weariness, the fever, and the fret. Here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow, and leaded eye despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his parades, but on viewless wings of poesy. Then the dual brain perplexes and returns, already with thee tender in this night, and haply the queen moon is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry fays. But here there is no light, save where from heaven is with the breeze blown, through Verodius glooms and winding mossy ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness guess each sweet, wherewith the seasonable mouth endows, the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn, and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-made eldest child, and comes the musk rose full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. Darkling I listen, and for many a time I've been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many a mused rhyme, to make in the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I've ears in vain, to thy high requiem become a sod. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, nor hungry generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night we have heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when sick from home. She stood in tears amid the alien corn, the same that oft times hath charmed magic casements opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn, the very word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my sole self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she's famed to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu, thy plaintive anthem fades, past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now 'tis buried deep in the valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music. Do I wake or sleep? There you go, a little poetry. Oh, I actually kind of want to see what the poem of the day is. Oh, no way. Okay, we're going to do one last poem before we play some Minecraft, because it just so happens to be thematically applicable. Good morning, Linda Beauty. How you doing? It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived with whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. Thank you for the bits. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. I have plenty of painkillers, feel free to take any, as well as cannabis. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels not half so happy in heaven when envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever disserve my soul from my soul, from the soul of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabelle Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side, my darling, my life and my bride, and I'll sepulchre her there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. There you go, Annabelle Lee. Now, Minecraft. Not everybody sleep today. And Ren, how did you sleep? Why are you in mega pain? It sounds awful. You slept through the afternoon. Oh, that's no good. I'm losing my chickens. Chickens. Come on back. Come on back, honey. Don't you dare. I forgot about you. Yeah, don't look at me like that. That's what I thought. No, I am so out of it right now. Oh, did you wake up? Hey, little alien. Hello, lovely. All of you that I've told about the song cover, this is who I'm going to be doing it with. They're an incredible singer. And if they ever start streaming, you need to go watch their content. Because the content that they make will be amazing. Calypsy, it's been 2 minutes, honey. You're gonna have to give me a minimum of like 5 minutes before I'll notice. I do see it. The thing is, though, it's on a different monitor, and I don't always go look over on that monitor every minute. You're fine. Arf, arf, I'm such a cute little puppy. Is that what you're wanting? No, okay, never mind. I decided I'm not recording it anymore. That way you don't have to be excited. I'm kidding. Don't you worry, sweetie. I will definitely be recording it. Can you imagine? Yes, thank you, sweetie. Thank you for the link, Carmia. Maybe a little. That's okay, I'm allowed to be evil. How did you put me in a jar? What just happened? I don't understand how that worked. How did you do that? How'd you put me in a... What's going on? How dare you? Get me out of the jar. Ani, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a nightmare. Here. Close your eyes. Let's put you back to sleep. Relax. You're in a space that's safe. There's nothing here to worry about, nothing to fear. Nothing to let you stress out about. Just be here. Be here. Good morning, Jupiter. And you sleep well, okay? And when you wake up, feel nice and rested. Mm-hmm. And there we go. Up we go. How are you doing today, Jupiter? How did you sleep? Well, I hope. You don't sleep. Well, how did you wake up then? Or, I don't know. Give me the right words to use and I'll use those ones instead. How's that sound? Of course. And I'm looking forward to finishing the cover. Tonight I have to finish my entry into that voice acting competition, though. That'll be fun. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to it. Of course. Just remind me in a message. I love the barrels. The barrels look so nice. Oh, just a voice acting competition. It's like a Halloween voice acting competition. I just want to win so I can prove I'm a good voice actor to myself. Yeah. Yeah, my only goal is just to prove that I'm a good voice actor. Yeah, scared to listen to me being scary. I'll be a little bit before y'all get to hear it anyway, so y'all be fine. Y'all will be fine. Where are we gonna put this? You're so excited for Scary Gene. Silly. Oh, I have zero Halloween plans. My only Halloween plans have been streaming horror. I don't really do much to begin with. Good morning, Beef. Hi. Also, little alien. Bunny. Get some sleep, little bunny. Mm-hmm. Mm. It's gonna be okay. It'll be okay. Oh, Beef. Honestly, I'm a little jealous of you then. I'd be so nice to wake up with a chill stream. Oh, that is awful, hon. Well, I hope it gets better for you very soon. Good. Always glad to help. I don't like that. I don't like the way that's open. That's too much open. It's too wide, too long. We're just gonna. That's better. Nice. What is your breakfast? What are you eating for breakfast? Did you make me any? You made me some, right? I mean, like, you wouldn't deny me food. Gib, I hunger. I hunger. Take food away. What? Me? Never. Why would I take food away? I love my little patch of green. It's so nice. Oh, that sounds so good. A nice omelet with chorizo and a lot of veggies. Oh, please, beefy. I would love one. I think I need to move the bamboo somewhere else. Bright. Oh, what I'd do for an omelet right now. There's something to look forward to then. I could have a yogurt. A yogurt. Oh, I might make myself a yogurt actually a little bit. Wait, do I have... I have vegetables too. I don't have any eggs. I need to get eggs. Instead, this morning I'm going to be making buttered chicken. The breakfast of champions, butter chicken. I make sure to always have some Greek yogurt. You're a member of the Fried Chicken Church? What does that mean? It's the fried chicken. Does that mean you only fry your chicken? I need to start having a poetry redeem. I need to not forget to add the poetry redeem. There we go. Why are you making that look? Of course, Jupiter. I would really appreciate that. I think it's funny you're sending Neeks to go remind me. And I'm sure Carmilla is lurking right now working and hears me talking about it. and so he's going to message me later about it. So much rock. Mm-hmm. Thank you for checking in. There we go. Tired. Feeling a little better. I'm getting there. Mm-hmm. Eat well, sleep well. Good time zone, everyone. Good time zone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We do some poetry. Would you like some poetry? We'll do a little poetry. Thank you for the follow. Let's see. What do we have? What do we have? No need to apologize ever. No need to apologize ever. Right, let's see. Mm-hmm. Scrolling. Oh, I like this one. You ready? Oh, and thank you for the follow. Bio. I had a dream which was not all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in their internal space, rayless and pathless in the icy earth, swung blind and blackening in the moonless air. Morning came and went and came, and brought no day, and men forgot their passions in the dread of this their desolation, and all hearts were chilled into selfish prayer for light, and they did live by watchfires and the thrones, the palaces of crowned kings, the huts, the habitations of all things which dwelled, were burnt for beacons, cities were consumed, and men were gathered round their blazing homes, to look once more into each other's face. Happy were those who dwelt within the eye of the volcanoes and their mountain torch. A fearful hope was all the world contained. Forests were set on fire by hour by hour. They fell and faded in the crackling trunks, extinguished with a crash, and all was black. The brows of men by the despairing light wore an unearthly aspect as by fits. The flash fell upon them, some lay down, and hid their eyes and wept, and did some rest, their chins upon their clenched hands, and smiled, and others hurried to and fro and fed the funeral piles with fuel, and looked up with mad disquietude on the dull sky. The pall of the past whirled, and then again with curses cast them down upon the dust, and gnashed their teeth, and howled. The wild birds shrieked, and terrified did flutter on the ground, and flapped their useless wings. Their wildest brutes came tame and tremulous, and vipers crawled, and twined themselves among the multitude, hissing but stingless, they were slain for food. And war, which for a moment was no more, did glut himself again. A meal was bought, with blood in each seat, sullenly apart, gorging himself in gloom. No love was left. All earth was but one thought, and that was death, immediate and inglorious, and the pang of a famine fed upon all entrails. Men died, and their bones were tombless as their flesh. The meager by the meager were devoured. Even the dogs assailed their masters, all save one. But he was faithful to a course, and kept the birds and beasts and famished men at bay, till hunger clung them, or the dropped dead lured through like jaws. Himself sought out no food, but with piteous and perpetual moan, and a quick desolate cry, licking the hand which answered not with a caress, he died. The crowd was famished by degrees, but two of an enormous city did survive, and they were enemies. They met aside the dying embers of an altar place, where had been heaped a mass of holy things. For an unholy usage they racked up, and shivering scraped with their cold skeleton hands the feeble ashes, and their feeble breath blew for a little life, and made a flame, which was a mockery. Then they lifted up their eyes that grew lighter, and beheld each other's aspect, saw and shrieked and died. Even of their mutual hideousness they died, unknowing who he was upon whose brow famine had written fiend. The world was void, the populous and the powerful was a lump, seasonless, herbless, treeless, manless, lifeless, a lump of death, a chaos of hard clay. The rivers, lakes, ocean, all stood still, and nothing stirred within the silent depths. Ships sailorless lay rotting on the sea, and their masts fell down piecemeal as they dropped. They slept on the abyss without a surge. The waves were dead, the tides were in their grave. The moon, their mistress, had expired before. The winds were withered in the stagnant air, and the clouds perished. Darkness had no need of aid from them. She was the universe. There you go. Darkness by Lord Byron. It's a fun one. Thank you, thank you. Life comes at you fast. I don't know why that feels so silly to me. Life do be coming fast. Just like me, wink wonk. Hey yo. Hey, put the camera away. You put that away right now. How dare you pull it out? Keep that away. Alright. I wish I had a pet bear that I could keep in my storeroom. That does sound like something a man who named himself Lord Byron would have, though, doesn't it? Because he wasn't, I don't think he was a lord. His name was definitely not Byron. Do you have a pet, chat? Are you my pet? Still has Chap in my pet. Oh, clearly I haven't been raising it right. Does that mean I have only myself to blame for your behaviors? Oof. Damn. I was striving to treat you all better. There's one. Two. And there we go. Hopefully we'll get melons soon. I should lock these chickens somewhere. Though I don't accidentally lose them. Maybe eventually. For now, that'll do. I gotta remember to do a poetry redeem. Oh, vines. Vines could be useful. I will definitely take those. I would not be upset. But I will pretend. Oh, thank you for the stream check in, Pink. Hi. And the stretch. Thank you. Oh, I felt that. That was. Oof. Always need vines. And. Come on. Where is it? There it is. Perfect. Now grow out a bit. Nice. So are you gonna redeem a Jupiter? I'm waiting. Or are you just gonna tell me about it? Were you threatening me with that? No. Honey bunch. Oh, I'm sorry you don't have time yet. Sure you'll have it soon. I love the flowering azaleas and the moss blocks. Arf, arf, I'm such a cute little puppy. There you go. I'm not you screenshotting that. I'm such a cute little puppy. One, two, three. Amazing. Nah, I don't like that. I think that provides more light. I love my mini bamboo grove. I wonder how high up it'll go. You're welcome. I feel like one of those kung fu movies where they walk on the bamboo. Oh, darling. I hope you're not only just now realizing that. Kung Fu Bandy. I don't think I've seen your Discord name. What's your Discord name? Very like me to have a Kung Fu reference to that. No, come on, tell me. Come on, Jupiter, tell me, sweetie. Let me hear. Nothing yet. You've not missed anything yet. The Vanyas. Well, nothing's really happened yet. I am being Kung Fu Panda. It is really kind of cool to walk along with the bamboo. You don't know that. I look exactly like Jack Black. I don't know what you're talking about. Chat, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm actually Jack Black. I'm the jackest of blacks, the blackest of jacks. I know you. I know you. I know you. I walked with you once upon a dream. I know you. The look in your eyes is so familiar, a gleam. And I know it's true. The visions are seldom as they seem. But if I know you, I know what you'll do. You'll love me at once the way you did once upon just press gibbets in a gibbets mold, and luckily their soul keeps coming back and filling in the gibbets mold. We've gotten lucky so far, but I'm worried that eventually gibbets mold won't come back. His life is one giant delusion. Wild. I mean, hi gibbets. You don't have to worry. We'll always get you to come back. We'll always get you to come back. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And if y'all quit setting gibbets on fire, this wouldn't be a problem. But y'all keep setting gibbets on fire. The way you did once upon a dream. What is this? Oh, bars. I was like, how am I making bars out of bamboo? That's crazy. Crazy. Those crazy ones. They put me in a room. A rubber room. A rubber room with the rats. It's the rats that made me crazy. Crazy. Those crazy ones. They put me in a room. A rubber room with rats. The rats that made me crazy. Those crazy ones. They put me in a room. A rubber room with rats. The rats made me crazy. Crazy. Those crazy ones. They put me in a room. A rubber room. Rubber with rats. The rats made me crazy. Crazy. I was crazy ones. They put me in a room. Rubber room. The room was filled with rats. It was the rats that made me crazy. You wanna know what the other crazy is? Crazy for feeling so lonely. But that always makes me want to sing the ink spots. I don't want to set the world. I just want to start flaming your heart. If I had my one and only desire, that would be you. No one else will do. I lost all ambition for worldly acclaim. I just wanna be the one you love. Melon. Melon. they get you pushing too many pencils. No, 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 no. Most definitely not. Don't be spreading lies. Now, can I tell you something really funny? I lived in Italy for a while, yeah? And I like American pizza a lot because American pizza has, the soft, fluffy crust that the Italians don't have. And so I went to a grocery store in Italy, and they have something called American pizza. And I'm like, okay, let me go try the American pizza. It was like a frozen pizza. Do you know what was on the American pizza? Like corn and onions and like the most random things. And I'm just like, how is this an American pizza? I've never had corn on pizza in my entire life. Whoa, that was spooky. Hi, Volfa, how you doing? I forgot my shield. Where's my shield? There's my shield. We're okay now. Mm-hmm. The only thing that really felt American about the American pizza was the crust, and I love the American pizza crust. Y'all have not experienced, like, the deliciousness of American pizza crust. Y'all have corned beef. Like, it's just so unique. American pizza crust. The way it, like, raises up, and it's just, It wasn't too bad. It was not too bad. Chicago pizza is very different, but what? That's crazy. New York City pizza. You know what I want to do? Oh, no way. I just thought about that. Oh, I'm going to ruin cooking for myself if I do this. So, like last year, I was staying in Italy. Okay? And I was staying up in the mountains in northern Italy near Milan. And the water there was incredible. Like the tap water was incredible. You'd walk into random places and like they would just have like water fountains flowing nonstop on the streets. And it's the cleanest, freshest water you've ever tasted. Like no matter where you go, the best water you've ever tasted. And so I'm just imagined if I went to Italy back there. Thank you for the follow. And I made my own pizza, and I made my own bread using that water, it would probably ruin making bread for me with using any other water. It's fresh mountain spring water. Fresh mountain spring water. It is incredible. It is the kind of water that people bottle and sell back in the States. How you doing, Alistair, next, though? Good morning. Char says zebrznia. But I like the taste of it. Dwarf, you got the autisms, don't you? I can feel a little bit of the tisms about you. Mm-hmm. did enjoy house water growing up. Hi, chickadee. Don't worry about it, dwarf. You got risen with the tism. You like when your water tastes. Well, that's something interesting I don't think I'd ever heard said before. Y'all are goofy, you know that? Y'all are horrendously goofy. Hi, Anna. How you doing? No. No, I have not. What? Please tell me you're not drinking pool water. Oh. God, we have people who are eating cornstarch. We have people who are drinking pool water. I can't believe Dwarf is just drinking pool water by the mouthful. Puts him through the paces. Dwarf. Sorry. I just want to bully you so badly. You've given me such an easy bullying target. I apologize. I need more stick. I'll take one jungle log just in case. Chat, I would like to tell you all about a little story, but you can't ask who I'm talking about, okay? So I'm going to be running a one-shot D&D for a friend of mine. And their friend was like, they're happy they got to do D&D because it made it so they could not have to work on a commission they were about to have to do. The commission that they had to do involved pee, but it was $1,000. And so they were like, well, I don't want to do this, but $1,000 is $1,000. I have a quarter. Even worse, though, the commission was to make it of the artist's OC. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hi. Thank you for the check-in and enjoy your shadows. $1,000. $1,000, and the person's going to be commissioning more work. My. Hi, Oro. How you doing? Morning, sweetie. Exactly, exactly. It's one of those things of like, they're like, I mean, enough money. Enough money, anything's possible. For me, at least. Oh, look at that. I like how it went up. I wonder if it's going to grow up further that way. It's going to be interesting. No, you're fine. Yeah, of course, of course, of course. Y'all are a lot more sensible than I am, though. Y'all are a lot more sensible than I am, because I'm like, I don't care. I legitimately don't care. That's a lot of money. 8 art pieces and the new model would be paid for. 8 art pieces and I'd fully pay off the 3D model. I don't have $8,000. Given that opportunity, I would in a heartbeat. Ah, sorry. Thank you. I see it now. You'll need to point it out to me sometimes, chat. I do appreciate it, though. Oh, 8,000. $8,000. It's going to cost me $8,000 for my next model. Well, probably more like 3,000 for the 2D and then 8,000 for the It worked. Holy shit, it worked. That's what I wanted. Yes. So. Yes. Oh, well, so first it's going to be a full body tracked model with an additional level of a VR chat model that will work there. It comes with a model of the chat icon as well. It has 8 to 10, I believe it has actually 10 facial expressions. And it will be accurate to the live 2D version as well. And so, yes, it will be incredible. Hello, Ash Letterman. How are you doing today? We are stuck in the German accent for a little while, but we'll be going back to the American in a bit. So do not worry, do not fear. I swear there are other accents I do as well. The British is not coming. And maybe when I find out how to do British properly, then I'll start doing that one, alright? But until then, you're gonna have to wait, because I still can't do it that well. There's the transatlantic one. I mean, transatlantic is pretty easy. That one I could do. That one is not too hard. Guess who's skipping class? Why are you skipping class? Why are you skipping class? The Irish I most definitely cannot do. I can do Australian pretty easily because I keep messing up. Pink, sweetie, why are you skipping class? You're making me worry about you. Well, why didn't you do your work? Be careful, okay? It is going to be hard, but if you need help, you can come ask the Discord or me, okay? I'd love to help you with whatever, or I can help you find the information you need. Please reach out. Say important to me. What do you mean? Do not kidnap, Pink. Pink is mine. Stay here. But you must stay here. Because I know you're going back to school, and I want to make sure that everything goes well with you this time, okay? Mm-hmm. I worry about you. Pink. Please do. And if you ever need any help at all, come reach out, okay? I am always happy to help. Just make sure you're passing most of your classes. Chat, we're going to go explode Pink's teacher, okay? Everybody, we're going to go explode Pink's teacher. Come with me, let's go. You are passing? Good. I'm glad. Aye. An accident. I'm going to only ring the bell. There will be no accidents here. There will only be bell ringing. Oh, okay. But how are you doing, Jinxie B? I recognize your name. Why do I recognize your name? You seem familiar. Did you follow me on TikTok? That would explain it. I might have stalked you a little bit. Yes, then I'd most definitely have stalked you a little bit. And now I can go back to this. Of course, I stalk everybody who follows me on Twitter. TikTok, sorry. Speaking of, I need to make a new one this morning. Oh. Why, Wolfa? Let's do another little poetry read. Let's see, what do we have? Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes and his companions did scheme and contrive to blow the king and parliament all up alive. 70 barrels laid below to prove old England's overthrow, but by God's providence him they catch, with a dark lantern lighting a match. A stick and a stake for King James' sake. If you won't give me one, I'll take two, the better for me and the worse for you. A rope to hang the Pope, a pen'orth of cheese to choke him, a pint of beer to wash it down, and a jolly good fire to burn him. Hold on, boys. Oh, that's a weird word. That one I can't read. Hey, I'm sorry. Was that about the cage? You said you wanted to? Oh, look. It's a pretty little room. If only it wasn't being secretly covered by a green screen. Don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. I'm just gonna need you to stand, right? Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. Hey. Hey. Hey, hey, hey. Alright, just step back a little bit. Step back a little bit. Right? Okay, there, I'll do it. Alright. Sorry, where were we? Don't eat my hair. No, here you go, Scripts. Here's what you... Not Scripts. Why am I... Casey, here's what you do. Get in front of a camera, get a simple background, and just talk. Talk about something that happened. Whether that's something that you did in a game. By the way, Scripts. I don't remember, the scripts got finished, right? Or you finished at least some of the scripts, I remember that. I don't think I've looked at them, and I but I feel like I remember some of them being done. I'll talk to you about it later. Are you gonna play Minecraft forever? Until I beat it, probably. If not, that's okay too. Alright, well, I'll review. And because I want to see if I can record one this week. I've been meaning to record something. A nice little script. I might let the cats in. Actually, I'm gonna feed the cats the cables. Is that okay? The cats just looked at me and were like, I want the cables. And so I just felt like, I feel like they deserve to eat the cables. The little cables could have for a treat. Is it not? Oh, you're right. Okay, I'll make sure that they only eat like the non-important cables. Phone chargers and stuff, okay? But cable tasty. Oh, hey, look, lava. Oh, is that what I think it is? Is that what I think it is? Oh, excited, 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 excited. They're all like, I never get fed. There are no treats. But do you know what tasty? Cable. Mmm. You don't have to do anything. You could starve. I'm not saying you should starve. I'm just saying there's options. Okay, okay, never mind. Wait, you can have all my cables. You can eat all my cables. Don't look at me with sad cat eyes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What the hecky? What the heck? Who did? Volva. Thank you, Volva. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I was not expecting that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I do really, really appreciate it. That's a whole. open the office door to the cats. You ready? I mean, wait, no, we're not going to do that because they're snacks. I don't know what to feel now. Oh, thank you, Wolf. I do really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Oh, we need copper, don't I? Gunfire, treason, and plot. See no race on the 5th of November should ever be forgot. What do you mean what happened to my skin? Hmm? You should. You should always start more Minecraft. Nothing. That's what I always looked like. You know, a bunch of copper golems. Me too. Free fence. I think it's funny that if this was actually working, I would be, collapsing this cave on myself. What'd you bring me? What'd you bring? What'd you bring? What'd you bring? Pink, what food you bring me? Not at all, boy. Not dog, not dog, not dog. I don't know what onion chips are, but I want one. I want an onion chip. I'm such a good doggy. Grumble, 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 grumble. Shoot, I hear a witch. Alright, Joe, we're gonna see if we can head back home. I need to get a bow. Oh, bone. Bone, 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 bone. Reading is hard. Math is hard, and so. I'll buy you food, yeah. I'll buy you food. Hit me up. I would so buy you food. I have eaten sweet tea for breakfast. Lost. Mm. 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 Lost. A little lost. So lost. Hmm. 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 Where am I? You must bounce on it. Crazy style. Gold Apollonium. My head is not empty. I have thoughts. I have so many thoughts. Cries in Spanish. Cha 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 cha. I have thoughts. You don't know me. I think so many things. I'm a thinky boy. The berries. I don't believe I can cry that much water, but I can try. For you, I'll try. I don't know, but I've seen it in subtitles where they like cries in Spanish. It's like, that's so funny. So silly. So goofy. ¿Cómo está? Okay. ¿Habla español? No. Unfortunately, I only speak German. Ich kann nur Deutsch sprechen. Entschuldigung. Oh, hallo. Scheiß, 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 scheiß. I live here now. You digivolved? What'd you digivolve into? Now you're a rat. Do you have a gun? If you digivolved, you should have a gun now. Average London apartment. That's pretty digivolved. That's valid. That's valid. and a mech leg. Honestly, very digivolved. I just live here now. Are those normal spiders? Check my DMs. I will. Come here, come here, come here. Oh, heck. Would you look at the time, chat? Even though I started late, I a little bit overslept today. McLag, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, McLag, fuck yeah. Oh, by the way. There we go. I really like this a lot. Pinky did a great job. I know I gotta go be a real boy. Let's see what we can read into. Oh, Yuki's live. Delphi's live. Who's here for ASMR or who wants to just Hoshi. I apologize for that. We're gonna go. We're rating Hoshi. Rating Hoshi. Rating Hoshi. Hoshi. Chat. Sad Hoshi. Be good. Be good. Fine. You can do a little EP arson, okay? Here. I don't have any fire emotes. We're just gonna do little hearts. There you go, chat. EP raid. Y'all behave yourself. I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.